Welcome back, MTG Joe here, and today we got the official full release of Explore Anthology 2. The direct to Arena kind of helps supplement the Explorer format, getting it closer to Pioneer. So it'll be direct purchasable cards through a set that's available next Thursday the 13th, or the 14th, whatever next Thursday is. So it's coming to Arena. You can purchase it for like 25,000 gold, I think, 4,000 gems. And it brings a bunch of cards, so we're getting like Nykthos, we're going to get Shaman of the Pack, Eidolon of the Great Revels, some supplementary cards at the common and uncommon spots, Mutavault, notably no Treasure Cruise, no Dreadbore, none of the stuff for Lotus Field combo. So there's still some stuff along the edges, no Bring to Light. We got Mana Confluence, so there's a whole thing. I'll link the, you can just like Google, it's probably quicker than linking because it's all over the place, but today what we're going to look at is 5 decks that you can build with the set, ideally porting over existing Pioneer decks as much as possible, and the last one's kind of a brew with some fun cards that I wanted to try out. So up first, this is the Elves deck. So notably with the new set, we are getting the printing of Shaman of the Pack. So 3 mana Golgari, so the Elves deck is moving from solely mono green to Golgari. 3/2, when Shaman of the Pack enters the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to the number of elves you control. So we're trying to go wide with this deck, make a lot of elves, and then Shaman of the Pack to kill. The only card that we don't have from the Pioneer version is Chord of Calling. So Chord of Calling is 3 green X with Convoke, so you can tap cards, and you basically get to tutor any card in your deck equal to where X is its converted mana cost. This lets you find the Shaman of the Pack more reliably. But otherwise, the deck is just looking to play similar to like some of the historic versions. So you have Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves, and Jaspera Sentinel, 10 1-mana accelerants. You have Lord effects in Elvish Clan Caller that can search up more copies of itself, as well as the Leaf Crown Visionary that also lets you draw some cards. We have Dwindling Elite that makes extra bodies, which is notable for Shaman. We have Elvish War Master, which makes more bodies and lets you use a mana sink to pump up your team, so kind of alternate win con. Visionary replaces itself and leaves you a body behind. And then one of Realm Walker for card advantage. The mana base is very large. Pretty straightforward, so you're going to get the Blooming Marshes, Overgrown Tombs, as well as... This is the wrong. This should be Llanowar Wastes. I'll fix that. This should be the Pain Lined. Didn't copy over correctly. And then Secluded Courtyard fixes your mana. We have the Llanowar Wastes, so this should... Is this for us? Sorry, give me a sec. I will check. I'll fix it in the main one. They should not be having any forests, so this defaults. So there's too many lands in the deck. So just minus these 2 forests. I got this off a 5.0 list that I tweaked. And then we have the sideboard, Shaper's Sanctuary for like the Rakdos matchup, anything with a lot of targeted removal. Phyrexian Revoker can be used to name like opponent's Nykthos. Non-land. So Planeswalkers, any of those types of abilities, anything with an activated ability, you can choose and name it. We also have Scavenging Ooze for Graveyard Hate, Unlicensed Hearse for Graveyard Hate. Positive Reflection is an interesting one. You'll see shortly we'll cover a mono white deck that's pretty much card for card now. The Pause for Reflection is a way for you to kind of fog your opponent while putting pressure, so helps you with those race situations. Reclamation Sage to blow up artifacts and enchantments, and then Vivian for grind effects against heavy removal based decks. So like I said, just I'll cut it out, but there shouldn't be the 2 swamps here. I built this in Arena and it defaulted my line count. Next up, we have Mono Red. So this is more Mono Red Burn, and we get Burn thanks to Eidolon of the Great Revels. 2 mana, 2/2, enchantment creature. Whenever a player casts a spell with CMC 3 or less, Eidolon deals 2 damage to that player. Now, notably, this is symmetrical. You yourself will take 2 damage, but you're hoping to deal more damage to your opponent than it would deal to you in a faster way. Supplementing the deck, you got Swift Sphere, as well as Soulscar Mage, 1 mana, 1/2s with prowess. Haste on the Swift Sphere, shrinking down ability on the Soulscar Mage. Kumano, play with Fire, Lightning Strike as your burn spells, as well as Bone Crusher Giants. You also have some Spike Field Hazards in here within the mana base. Kumano, just ping, pump, and a body that can exile upon removal. And then 4 Chain Whirlers. and then 2 of each Chandra. 2 Chandra Dress to Kill, and then 2 Chandra Torch of Defiance on the top end as well. Mana base, very nice and clean. Some Dens, some Ruins, a Sokuzan, and then basic Mountains. The sideboard, we have Mutavaults, so against heavy removal decks, games that are looking to go long, you have access to creature lands in there as well. Mutavaults, just a really efficient creature line, 1 mana to activate for a 2/2. Rending Volley is a card that's going to be printed, just really clean and efficient to deal with white or blue creatures. Can't be countered, so really good against spirits. Some copies of Fry. Fry scales up to hit to fairy on a plus, whereas the Rending Volley doesn't. Unchained Berserkers for the mono white matchup. Unlicensed Hearse for graveyard. We don't have Roast in the format, which is 2 mana, deal 5. So we're playing Rending Flame. And then 1 Hazoret that's good against the Rakdos heavy removal based decks that are not exile based. We then go to Mono Green Devotion. So we got Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. So this is a Devotion mono green list. We're missing basically 1 card from the main board, which is Oath of Nissa, which lets you dig for a land, as well as makes all your planeswalkers can be cast for any color mana. So you'll see 4 mana to fairy that taps and taps played in the deck, as well as Nicol Dragon God typically. We don't have that, so we can't go crazy with our mana, so we're just playing Nisas instead. Those other 2 planeswalkers, and then Commune with the Spirits helps us dig for our Nykthos. 8 accelerants on 1. You have the Wolf Willow Haven, and you're just trying to use Kiora to tap and tap, generate a whole bunch of mana. Karn gives you full access to Wishboard. Cavalier helps you dig for your for your Nykthos. Nissa doubles your mana. Storm helps you just put up a whole bunch of stuff. And then it's just Wishboard, really. So if you need a land, then you got Graveyard Hate and Tormod's Crypt. Haywired Might is a searchable way to destroy artifacts or enchantments and gain you life. Pithing Needle to shut off activated abilities. Shadow Sphere for life gain. Dampening Sphere for like mana abilities. So you can kind of turn it off where if your opponent's trying to play like heavy spells, you can make Nykthos not produce green mana, which could be relevant in the mirror. This is mostly used for the Lotus Field combo, but it's still in there if you need it. It also, if they're playing a lot of spells, can tax them in that effect. Heart of Kirin, you have a lot of planeswalkers, so it's a way to protect and attack. Stone Brain for combo pieces. Unlicensed Hearse for graveyard hate. We'll get to the Cauldron in a sec. Eska's Chariot as blockers and kind of a way to attack forward. Skyship, Sky Sovereign, Council Flagship. Best card against Rakdos, just blow up stuff. You can animate it with Karn, so you don't even need to crew. God Pharaoh Statue to tax like the control-y style decks. And then Cityscape Leveler is in the place of Meteor Golem just to blow stuff up. Now, the Cauldron is basically an infinite combo. So with the flip side, Restorative Burst. So you can fetch this with Karn, and then if you have a Karn and a Kiora in the battlefield, and a Karn and the Kiora in the graveyard, and you can generate 15 mana with Nykthos, you can basically infinitely cast Restorative Burst. This gets exiled, you get the 2 copies of the Planeswalkers in your graveyard, you get to recast them. Those ones get destroyed. Go to your graveyard, Karn can fetch this from exile, and you can loop it and generate infinite life and an infinite value. And then typically with this deck here, if you're able to generate a black mana, which we can't in this build. Some of them will play 1 Overgrown Tomb. You can mill them out, but in this case here, it just lets you get infinite mana. And then you can kind of go off like that. With the God Pharaoh, it lets you have a black mana, and then you can mill them out with the combo. So it might be worth playing 1 Overgrown Tomb, just as a tutorable way to kind of get them that way there. Then we move into mono white aggro. So this deck is pretty much intact to the Pioneer version. And we got the inclusion of Brave the Elements. So choose a color, white creatures you control gain protection from the chosen color till end of turn. So basically you can alpha strike in, and if your opponent's on like mono green or a single color deck, they can't block, so you can kill them that way. A lot of 1-drops, so we got Dauntless Bodyguard to protect as a 2/1, Savannah Lion, Hopeful Initiate, gets bigger when you attack. Recruitment Officer, there's a number of soldiers in the deck that you can tutor for as well, so kind of card advantage as a 2/1. The deck in Pioneer plays 3 of these and 1 Kynthian, the Gideon Flipwalker. We don't have that on the client right now, so Recruitment Officer as a 4-of. Luminarch Aspirant, Thalia's, and Thalia's Lieutenant. Pretty much everything in our deck's a human, so it pumps it up that way. You got Adeline for your go wide abilities, Brutal Cathar's removal, and Extraction Specialist to get all these goodies back from your graveyard. Mana base really nice and clean. You got some Chefnet Dunes to pump your team, 4 Mutavaults, a Castle Ardenvale, and a Ganjo. And then your sideboard, you got Laydown Arms as removal, Destroy Evil for like Shieldrids or enchantment removals, Rest in Peace for Graveyard Hate, Redain for tax effects on big mana decks, Wedding Announcement for heavy removal, direct damage. Like, think of like Rakdos, it's hard for them to 1-for-1 if you're going wide. It's also an Anthem effect. And then Archon of Emeria, typically used against the Lotus Field combo. But you can tax, like if there's non-basic lands, anything like that, just slow them down in decks that are looking to play a lot of spells per turn. So it's the mono white deck, and then we go lastly to the fun one I built. This one I'm going to preface, no clue how good it is, but I wanted to try out the Eldrazi. So we're getting a few Eldrazi in the set. We have Matter Reshaper, so when it dies, reveal the top card of your library. You may put that card onto the battlefield if it's permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less, otherwise put it into your hand. So collect a company shell that's looking to do like Eldrazi and Taxes style things. Notably, if you're unfamiliar with this casting cost, this is colorless, so you have to specifically pay a colorless mana source. So something that generates colorless mana. So think of Mutavault, think of the Brushland, think of the Haship Oasis. So in this deck here, we have 9 colorless sources that can be used to cast this, as well as being just able to hit it off the collected company. We also have Thought-Knot Seer, which gets to basically Thought-Seize your opponent and exile it, and then when it dies, they get to draw a card. We have Eldrazi Displacer that lets us blink for 3 mana, and that lets us reset some of our effects, like so you can upkeep Thought-Knot Seer or Lead Spellbinder their cards and kind of just pick away at their hand. You could blink Skyclave Apparitions or Knight of Autumns or Elvish Visionaries for card advantage, and then just the full 8 1-mana accelerants with a collected company. Mana base, we got the creature lands with Mutavault and Lair of the Hydra, Haship Oasis, Aganjo, Beseju as utility lands. And then sideboard, Shaper Sanctuary for targeted removal, Revoker to name troublesome permanents. With activated abilities, Graveyard Hate and Rest in Peace, Knight of Autumn is a flexible spell, Wedding Announcement for the same reason as the mono white decks that we mentioned, and then Archon of Absolution just shuts down those mono white decks. You can tax them, as well as just make it so they can never really block it or deal damage to it. Also pretty decent against blue-white control. Beyond sweepers, pretty much all their removal is white-based, so it gets around like Wandering Emperor and stuff like that. So that's it for this. Let me know what you're thinking of building, if you take it in any different direction than I would. And we'll be back to play a bunch of these decks and see how they go once the set comes out. In any case, thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you have a great one and stay safe out there.